Okay.
We weren't allowed to say
Recycled.
Yeah,
Recycled.
we're going to recycle this.
recycled paper,
Yeah,
yes.
we're recycling this.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October meeting of the Suffolk County Council on Environmental Quality. I'd like to welcome everybody. I want to remind people that it is a public meeting. If there is an item on the agenda that you wish to address, please wait until we get to that item, and then you're more than welcome to state your name and press it. The minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the August 2013 minutes?
I've read them. They looked okay to me. I wish Rich McDay was around to say something about them. He would have found at least one or two typos, but they look good to me.
Okay.
I will make a motion to accept.
Is there a second? Seconded by Dan. All in favor? Motion passed. Correspondence.
Okay, we don't have any official correspondence, but I wanted to bring to the council's attention that it's been a long process, but the state has now approved the updated EAF forms for both unlisted and type 1 actions, both the short form and the long form. I don't know if the CEQ remembers back over a year ago, they approved the updated EAF forms, and then the state delayed the implementation of them for a year. But now on October 7th, they've gone into effect, so we have the approved updated forms, and they're on our website. And we'll just work with all the departments, make sure they have them, and if any questions, we'll work with them.
Were there any surprises or anything like that?
No.
Given what we've seen.
Yeah, no, it's the same as it was a year ago. It just took a while. Yeah, nothing changed. It's mostly the same things, just a few additional, so not major changes.
Historic Trust docket. Rich, do you have anything to say?
Good morning. Just a brief update. The housing program, we still have all the buildings occupied. We had some tenants moved out, but we were able to quickly get new people to move in, so they are still all occupied. There's no contracts that have been completed at this point, so it's been really dragging on, quite a few of them that we have. So the department is looking to see if we can simplify the process and get agreements processed quicker, because now that we have quite a few that have expired. So we're working on that with the county attorney's office. And just an update on deep wells, the sprinkler system is completed. They're just doing some interior painting now to finish up. And so we will be able to hold the holiday fair there December 7th and 8th. We will not be able to hold the Halloween event that we normally hold because the house won't be ready in time for it. But the project has been completed. So we'll be turning it back over to the Historic Society in a couple of weeks.
Madam Chair, can I make a comment? My wife and I attended a wedding at Quandra Hall last week, and I have to tell you, the place looks fabulous, the interior is fabulous. Was it Lesser is the? Lessing, right. They did a wonderful job. I've never been to a wedding where the staff was so professional, and the food was terrific. Oh man, it was unbelievable.
Well, that's good to hear.
We're doing a wonderful thing there.
Rich, thank you.
And this is good to hear, and
Yes.
it's really worked that Lessing's got the exclusive contract for that site. Before we had 3 caterers, and with Lessing's only being there, which won by competitive bid, he's done a lot more improvements and fixed the building up and also upgraded the menu and everything over there. So the building and the events are much better.
That's great. Larry?
Going back to deep wells, last year at this time, people seemed to be using deep wells as a dumping grounds for leaves and stuff along Mauritius Road. I'm wondering if you could get the people to that oversee it to sort of watch out for that and report it because it makes it look pretty seedy along that
Is
stretch.
this Mauritius Road you're talking about, or Highland?
No, Mauritius.
Mauritius?
Where, almost across from the gas station on down.
Okay. Yes, I'll take a look at it.
Thank you. Okay, project review. Recommended unlisted actions. A, proposed replacement of County Road 16 bridge over Long Island River and Long Island Avenue. Capital Project 5855, Town of Brookhaven. Who was here to speak?
Hi, my My name is Paul McMahon. I'm the project manager with Suffolk DPW for the CR16 bridge replacement project. This project basically calls for the full replacement of the existing bridge over the Long Island Railroad and Long Island Avenue. The bridge is over 70 years old. It's the load rating is deficient for today's current loading standards. It's also a non-redundant structure. And in the last 3 to 4 years, we've had 2 emergency deck repairs. I mean, we literally had holes in the deck, and debris was falling onto Long Island Avenue and the railroad. So I have here today Ken Holmstrom from Lero. They're the consultant design firm that the county has hired to progress the design of this federally funded project. This project is scheduled for construction in 2015, and it is scheduled for 80% reimbursement by FHWA. So at this point, I'm going to have Ken take over and do the technical presentation of the project.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome, Ken.
Good morning. I'll try not to bore you with this. It's pretty straightforward. Paul has told you most of what there is to know about the existing, and just have a aerial photo. Shows the existing bridge crossing over Long Island Avenue below and the Long Island Railroad. Have a couple of pictures, one of which is showing the under roadway and the arrangement of the structure, which is 4 simple spans of steel construction. The intermediate supports are concrete columns with a steel cap beam. That is the non-redundant element. If that steel cap beam would have failed, the whole bridge would fail. Some photographs, as Paul has indicated, and pop-throughs on the deck that required emergency repair. Some pretty significant spalling of the underdeck, and one other condition where the connection of the outside stringer at one location had deteriorated to where there was almost nothing left as far as the connection was concerned. That being said, Paul's talked about the deficiencies and the need to replace the 70-year-old bridge. The proposed bridge is a 2-span continuous structure. It's oriented differently as opposed to the existing bridge, which is normal to the over roadway. It's skewed to parallel the under features. One span will be crossing over the Long Island Avenue. The second span crosses over the railroad. It's of steel construction. There are a couple of other construction options that are being considered, but that'll be flushed out. As Paul said, we're at the state with our design approval document, and we will have a public information meeting. We anticipate that we will be hearing from the state in the near future with the report that has been resubmitted, and hopefully we can obtain design approval and continue the design process. Pretty much all I have to say.
What are the other construction methodologies that are being considered, and why are they being considered?
Just construction types: concrete, pre-stressed, precast I-beams, or concrete box beams. They're just different types of construction.
So the design of the loading and the configuration of the accommodation of the road needs is not being changed. It's just
no,
a
the
different
layout
methodology.
the layout would be exactly the same.
The span should be the same. And
correct. Same span, same supports. Just a function of what's underneath it supporting it, the superstructure.
Is that because of value engineering purposes, that other things are being considered, or other reasons?
Yeah, it's just typical to look at, given this span length, various types of construction methods.
And so the redundancy would be still incorporated?
Correct. This would be a redundant bridge.
Right.
Part of the New York State DOT review process is we have to evaluate multiple alternatives, a rehab alternative,
I see.
a couple of different full build and then the no build alternative. This is mandated by FHWA and New York State DOT. So we have to do a thorough analysis of each alternative. Generally, you know, we want to pick the one that gives us the highest factor of safety and the highest benefit cost ratio.
Okay, yeah, okay, fine.
A couple questions on the design. One, is there any provision for bike travel?
The,
I mean, and there is a sidewalk on here, and I do see that. It's
Yes.
5 and change.
correct, and there will be 7-inch shoulders, I believe it is, on either side of the roadway,
Yeah.
and those can be used for bicyclists.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't know what the bicycle traffic is in the area, and I'm also not sure if it's connected with any of the bike routes that we have.
It's not really affiliated with any routes right now at this point in time, but in the future, the county is planning on doing.
So you don't need to put in the
comprehensive
bike,
bike
the little
study.
bike graffiti, basically.
We wouldn't put a full designated bike lane in because it's just such a very short duration for this project. We're not doing an overall corridor improvement.
Okay.
In the future, right now, it's being designed to accommodate future bike
Yeah,
use.
I am seeing that.
Okay.
Question. This is a heavily used bridge. What kind of provisions are you going to have for detours? Because right now, you're going to have a major interruption issue. And according to the documentation that we're seeing, it's about a year to knock down and rebuild. How are you going to handle traffic? You're not going to demolish, say, half the bridge or anything in sequence.
That,
What are you guys going to
there's
do?
a couple of different options, which Ken will go into more detail. The least painful way to do this project would be to obviously expedite the construction. So we would opt for a full closure. That's currently under review by the New York State DOT for approval. That's also going to be one of the options discussed at a public information meeting. There are detours that are already planned out, that were incorporated into the design approval document. Another option is to do it in phased construction where you would maintain one half the bridge and then you would construct the other half and then you would flip the traffic over.
What about still the
construct-
temporary bridges that they have?
What was that?
Still the temporary bridges over at the northern state.
That has been utilized. Generally, it's not put in as a design option, but there are instances where the contractor proposes it
The reason
as a MPT alternative.
Again, that's a very heavily traveled road.
The traffic
And, I mean,
volumes
you're
are
going to
pretty
have,
high.
even with your detours, I don't know what the detours really are. I'm not familiar enough with the local area. I know the bridge.
Some of the detours would utilize Route 112, service roads, some
Well-
local roads. Kenny's going to go into more detail.
Right,
what
I
the
mean,
detours are.
as
The
far
locals
as,
are going to flip out is what it boils down to.
as far as the detour is concerned, it isn't a onerous detour using existing roadways and major roadways. The bridge is right here, here's the LIE, here's Horse Block Road. The detour basically would be with the road closed at the bridge to have traffic continue along the expressway up to the next exit, Sills Road, come back down, and now you're back at Horse Block, and you can go back to the north and west if that's where you were looking to go, or continue further south down towards Sunrise Highway, and same thing in the reverse. You would just be directed at this point, if you wanted to get all the way up to the expressway, to turn up Sills and can come back on the expressway.
It's a pretty long detour, but
At least 10 minutes and even 15 if the traffic is
yeah,
bad,
that's
which it does
what I'm
get.
thinking about, especially summertime. But
Yeah, Larry.
it is what it is.
A lot of the traffic that goes there are the 18-wheeled garbage trucks, the transfer station. Are you gonna be running those through neighborhoods?
No, again, I mean, the primary is all along the expressway and Sills Road.
Sills
Sills
is
Road is a
industrialized.
county road, and there is no neighborhood development along it.
Again, Sills is pretty industrialized. There's nobody lives over there.
Right. I mean, that would be the primary detour. There are other options, like Paul said, in terms of using 112 to Peconic Avenue. There's Belport Avenue over here. Those would be options, not necessarily that would be signed, because that would be then taking traffic through neighborhoods, and instead, locals who are familiar with the area would, find those as options that can get them around the work zone.
I'm just curious, if you were to take down, say, half the bridge at a time, structurally, would this be a possibility, or would we be compromising safety?
It can be done, given the nature of the layout of the bridge. It involves some additional work.
You'd have to strengthen a fair amount. I was looking.
Well, it's not so much strengthening in it. Again, what it is that these cross girders that are the cap beams would have to be cut in half, and you'd have to provide a new support at that point along those different points. And I mean, the one thing that, if you close the bridge down and do it all in one phase, the duration will be less.
Significantly less.
And safety-wise, you're taking traffic off and letting them go on roadways that are unencumbered by work zones, as opposed to if you do it in stages, you're gonna basically squeeze them through cattle chutes that are very narrow lanes at the work zone.
That's, I think, the important issue. I mean,
Well, and-
if you're compromising safety, okay, that's something that the community has to be aware of.
Mhm.
And that, forms part of any judgment that we give here. I don't think it should be done.
And we've had discussions with the town as far as that detour concept, and they're on board. They have no
Town is
qualms
on board.
of, endorsing a detour and closure of the bridge.
The DOT has also reviewed the detour and they've commented on it. We've incorporated their suggestions back into the DAD, so we're anticipating, concurrence with design approval shortly from the New York State DOT.
That's important.
I'll take that.
I would
And-
imagine too, you also don't really know the true condition of each one of those points that you have to support, and there might be mitigating factors that prevent you from, utilizing that system anyway, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Possibly,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Anything basically can be
Yeah.
done at a cost, and that would be some additional cost involved in terms of creating temporary supports in that. And to speak towards detouring, out on the expressway right now, the state has detoured full closure Waverly Avenue, not too far from here, where they're replacing the bridge deck there, and they're using a full closure, which is, traffic has to go down on the expressway service road to the next crossover and then come back.
The detour is unfortunate, but
yeah.
to take 6 to 12 months off the duration of the construction, you're gonna have a big savings in MPT costs. The overall cost of the project would be less.
I guess what it boils down to for me is, is there an environmental impact to this? Obviously, we don't want people falling off of the bridge. That's always a non-desirable environmental impact. But the detours through Sills, which again is industrialized, and Peconic much less so. Yeah, no one's going to be happy with anything that happens. But just in terms of the impact upon the community and the areas, I see what they have set up and what they're proposing is probably being the best way to do it.
Madam Chair, are they going to be coming back to show us their planting plan? I didn't get a chance to really review the whole thing, to be honest.
I don't think that was part of it. Excuse me, Dan, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
That we'll be revisiting this at some point, I imagine.
We will have a
No.
landscape
No.
plan as part
It
of this
wasn't part of
project.
it.
It's
Was it really?
topsoil furnished in place, seating on prepared areas. Basically, they're
That's
just
all it was.
milling the road in
Yeah.
certain areas, restoring the area.
It's gonna be minimal disturbance.
Right.
We're
There's no trees
strictly
there to
just
begin with.
replacing the bridge.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
dealing with the bridge, so.
I understand, it's just.
They'll put some grass in.
Yeah, we ask, we usually review that sort of thing as well.
Mary
Paul?
Ann, they'll put some weeds in.
Paul,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the actual assessment form and the project description scale of project number 1 for D. It's on page 3. Acreage of vegetation or cover to be removed is stated as 0.9 acres. Go along to page 7 and question D1, impact of summer mitigation. How many acres of vegetation will be removed from site? That one says 0.4 acres. There's just a discrepancy there.
Disturb versus removal.
Well, I'm not sure how to take this. usually they match.
And again, well,
That's
yeah,
all.
this just happens. Just
Okay, just
Correct
wanted to
it
bring
and
that up
match
to
it.
you, yes. Okay?
Okay. Yeah, we'll just make sure the
Yeah.
numbers match on
Yeah,
it.
make sure it's correct, okay? Is there a
I do have
motion?
question.
Oh,
I'm
sorry, Dan, go
I
ahead.
do have a question now. Two questions. Hi, Paul, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, Dan?
The cross-section of the bridge, is it a 12-foot median? Is that because federal funds are used, it's a standard federal cross-section? Or do you anticipate widening of Horse Block Road in that section at some point that's accommodating that?
yeah, but that'd be only one lane.
The median in the center of the road,
Right,
at
yeah.
some point in the future, when you're using federal funds to construct the bridge, you have to build it out for at least a 30-year growth rate
Right.
period. So rather than, we wouldn't want to constrict it and then have to go
Right.
back and do a bridge widening project in case, because this is a rapidly developing area.
Right.
So if there has been studies done, you know,
Right.
EPPs.
It's been on the books for a
Now,
while,
if this
right.
becomes a corridor improvement, say 10, 15 years from now, and ultimately there is going to be a capacity expansion,
Right.
the bridge is already, we don't have to touch the bridge.
You answered the question better than I asked it. Okay.
Yeah, you should remember that from all our years of working together on the
Right,
bus
yeah.
shelter projects.
The second thing is I can't quite visualize it, but there is some sort of odd intersection with either at the end of the bridge there at Horse Block Road to get down to,
Long Island Avenue.
is that going to be realigned or anything in any way? Or
No,
is it
that-
necessary? No.
No.
Okay, members of the board, is there a motion?
Motion unlisted, neg deck.
Second.
Seconded by Eva, any other concerns? Doesn't- Everybody vote, motion passed. Thank you.
Good job, yeah.
Alrighty, next project review, recommended unlisted action, proposed interchange improvements for County Road 111 at the LIE, capital project 5123, Town of Brookhaven. Paul, are you speaking again?
Well, introduce Kenny again.
Okay.
Once again, we've
Doubleheader.
hired the highly respected firm of Lero Group to do the design. Again, this is a federally funded project, 80/20. It's, this job is on an accelerated schedule. We're looking to get construction authorization next September, by next September. So right now, again, we're pretty much at the same point. We're wrapping up the design approval document. We've actually received our second round of comments from the New York State DOT. They're pretty much in line with it. I think we just had to answer one question about guide rail. And then it's going to get sent up to FHWA for an interchange. Whenever you work on an interchange on the National Highway System, FHWA has to review and sign off on it, so it goes up one more level. But New York State DOT, we're anticipating concurrence with the design on that. So again, it's a 80/20 federally funded project. All work will be done within Suffolk County right away and New York State DOT right away. As you know, this intersection experiences peak delays on especially during the summer season. The traffic queues up on Route 111, on County Road 111, into the through lanes. It has led to some rear-end accidents. Also, on the South Service Road, when the traffic queues back up, we have experienced some T-bone accidents. So it's generally all caused by the long delays associated with making the left turn to go westbound on the LIE. So this project proposes to remove the median in the bridge, have 2 left turning lanes. Since we're doing that, we will be required to reconfigure the entrance ramp onto the westbound LIE. Right now, it's configured for 1 lane. It's going to need 2 because you're going to have 2 turning lanes entering, so you have to have 2 lanes to accept. So without further ado, Ken will go through the technical presentation.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I just want to ask Paul a question.
Paul, has got a
Paul?
question for you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, this would be a better question for you. It just seems to me in terms of, and this doesn't have anything to do with CEQA, I would guess, but just in terms of the warrants of this project, it just seems like it's, an inconvenience on Sundays during the summer, and for $6 million, it would seem that there were other county roads that are much more, and bridges that are much more in need of improvement. It's like this project kind of like jumped the list or something like that.
Dan, it's summer people. We gotta
Yeah,
accommodate 'em.
but it just seems, it just seems like a priority that would be pretty darn low on the list.
Ours
You know,
is not
Dan,
the
it's-
reason.
Ours is not the reason why. Okay, sorry.
Your point is well taken, but this project also does have a lot of support from the legislature.
Right.
Some members of the legislature.
Yes, right.
It has been on the tip for numerous years, so we're at a point where if we don't generate a construction charge, we could lose all the funding for
Right,
it too.
yeah.
And right now, it seems the big MO of the county is a lot of projects that have federal funding in it are the
Right.
ones getting progressed.
You know, it's anecdotal, and you went around for this, but the story goes that 111 was originally built. It was originally supposed to go all the way up to 25A, because Rudy Camera had a summer place in West Hampton Beach, and he needed a convenient place to go diagonally.
Dan, if you come back into the Highway Design Archives, I could show you the original,
I know.
the base mapping for the acquisition maps we were
Anyway.
going to do for that.
Sorry taking up the council's time with this.
Ken? Just a minute, though.
All right. Again, there's, like Paul said, two elements. The one element deals with the bridge. As you can see, picture over here, there is a raised median separating the north and southbound traffic directions on 111 in between the two service road intersections. When you come up to the North Service Road to make the left turn onto the LIE westbound entrance ramp, there are two left turn lanes, but the one lane is a shared left through, and there isn't very much length in the other left turn lane because of the location of that raised median. So the intent is to remove that median, flush it out, so the left turn lane can be extended back further, and you will have more capacity for traffic waiting at that light. Given that, the second part of the project is when the two turning lanes enter onto what is the North Service Road. However, the North Service Road does not exist to the west. It basically just funnels into the entrance ramp. Those two lanes merge quickly into a single lane, and you also have traffic coming south on 111, turning right, that is also merging together, and entering onto the expressway on a single lane entrance ramp. So what on the top is showing what the configuration of the entrance ramp terminal looks like, and its endpoint over here. There's some photographs of the ramp looking back towards the service road and looking out as it merges into the expressway. The proposed accommodation is to provide for a second entrance ramp lane, and that will extend out to this point here, which is just prior to the bridge over at Ryerson Avenue. So basically, the extent of any disturbances, creating a new paved surface probably 10 to 12 feet beyond the existing edge of pavement on the north side, and that will allow for the two left turn lanes to have much more time to make the decisions in terms of merging together and eventually merging onto the expressway. The only other thing is that there were some other options that were looked at in terms of accommodating this situation. The one other option was to look at a loop ramp, and that loop ramp would be a two-lane loop ramp to accommodate the traffic. It'd be very tight within the quadrant that exists there, and the most onerous part of that construction would be because of the bridge at 111. In order to get those lanes to merge into the expressway and have sufficient length, the entire expressway would have had to been shifted south into the median And given all of that, that option has been, put to the side. It's much more expensive, and this can do what needs to be done there.
Any questions? Larry?
Refresh my memory. This is where if you're going north on 111, you have to turn left to get onto the LIE, is that correct?
That is correct. Continuing beyond that, you go into a small area that's developed in Manorville. Ultimately, you cross over the railroad up there.
I travel the road infrequently, but I find that it's very confusing. Nothing is consistent about whether you have a clover leaf or whether you turn left, and that the signage is inadequate to prepare you for actually turning left in this situation and actually several other situations, and that in itself is dangerous.
Okay.
You don't know you get in the right lane, and suddenly it isn't a clover leaf if they have to cross.
Well, and again, that's part of the situation where, because the median exists, the one lane is a shared through left lane. So if you want to go straight, you're in that lane, but you also can use it to make a left turn. There is a second left turn lane, but that is very short, again, because of the median there. That constricts how long that left turn lane can be. So, most of the traffic is in that single lane that's there, that is shared through left turn lane, and only, there's only so many cars that can fit in the dedicated left turn right now. So the idea is to get rid of the median and make that dedicated left turn lane much longer, and more people will be able to be in that lane, and they'll also be able to be in a second left turn lane, and the through lane will be separate. So everybody will know that they have to be in either of those two dedicated left turn lanes at that point.
Okay, but if there was just signage further down the road that said, to get on 495 going west, you're going to have to turn left, it would be
Okay.
helpful.
A warning sign,
Yeah.
We'll review the signage, and
That's going to be incorporated into the signage plan, Larry.
Uh-huh.
Further down, we'll have advanced warning signs
Wonderful.
showing them the new configuration.
Yeah, it's sort of like
We'll probably
when you
have
go
it
to
overhead.
New Jersey, you have jug handles, but then you don't really have jug handles, so you don't know what the hell you're preparing.
Which way to go?
Okay, that would be great.
thank you.
Loretta?
I travel this every day, and I come from the north, coming down.
Okay.
And that lane that merges into the entrance,
Ramp onto the
actually,
surface.
there's a stop, do
Correct.
not turn
And
on
that-
red. So
and-
we do not merge at all anymore.
And that's one thing that will be addressed in there, that you will be able to merge, because there will be additional pavement within there and a lane to allow you to merge. Right now, people are unnecessarily stopped and having to wait until the light
Which is a
turns
long one.
green.
Yes.
All right, and there's at times no reason for you not to proceed other than safety. This will allow you to go, free movement onto the ramp, onto the service road into the ramp.
Okay, and also there's a light here at this corner which backs up quite a lot too in the summer. So the backup not only is here,
Correct.
but it's really here. So are these going to be
They're-
timed, because
Yes, they
there
will
doesn't
be
seem to be
coordinated.
well timed at this point?
Yeah, they will be coordinated and work together. In addition, also with the new signal that's at the entrance from the development that has just taken place there with the CVS, and also with the other signal at the other intersection there.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion.
Say what?
Come on.
Continue.
Unlisted negative declaration.
Okay. Seconded by Mary Ann. All in favor? Motion passed.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
That's an easy one.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question before you leave? You just repaved Nichols Road?
Nichols Road, there's a couple of resurfacing projects going on. One's a federal aid job, one is a local project. And then we're also gonna have an intersection project on Nichols Road. It's a multi-phase project, Nichols Road. So yes, there's
But I guess
there's two projects in
Okay.
progress right now. Soon to
you're
be
the
heard.
engineer, I'm not, but I must say, I really wondered why we were spending money on resurfacing Nichols Road, down around Route 25. I couldn't see that there was really anything wrong with it. And are we just throwing money away because federal dollars are available?
What was the location?
Oh, down around, going from the university,
Okay, going from the
347 down
community
towards
college
25.
Now, that section was last resurfaced more, I would say that was last done probably in the early 2000s. We just finished resurfacing that section from the community college heading north. We finished that job in 2009 because I was out on CR 16 and we were coordinating our pavement operations together.
Okay, I was just curious.
So that section was done, but this section before that, I was working on the original resurfacing plans back in 1999 with Jeff over here, and that job was resurfaced. It was a federal aid project in 2000. So that, there is rutting, there are areas of deteriorated pavement. So we go, rather than let it continue to deteriorate, we pretty much have that road, it sees about 100,000 cars a day on it. It's going to be on a quicker schedule for resurfacing. That road's probably going to get resurfaced every 8 to 10 years, as opposed to some of our roads with lower volumes, which might be more on a 12 to 15-year cycle.
Thank you.
Next, proposed pedestrian safety improvements on County Road 35, Park Avenue, Town of Huntington. Please state your name.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Dawson. I'm a senior civil engineer with the Department of Public Works in Paul's office, actually. I'm in the consultant management division of the highway design unit. Today I'm presenting, actually Kevin Papazian from FST Engineers will be presenting a project for the installation of sidewalks and pedestrian safety improvements from CR 86, which is Broadway Green Lawn Road, to New York State Route 25A in the town of Huntington. The overall intent of the project is to provide a continuous, safe pedestrian walkway within this corridor that's going to involve installation of sidewalk in areas where there is no sidewalk currently, and also replacing sidewalk that is in deteriorated condition. Schedule for this for construction is 2015 on the south phase, which is from Broadway Green Lawn Road to Pulaski Road, and subsequent years for the north phase, which is from roughly the Long Island Railroad tracks north to 25A. So I'll let Kevin Papazian from FST again give you the details.
Before you go on, Kevin,
Sure.
I do want to let Joy add something right here
Sure,
that
go
I
ahead.
think is quite important before you continue.
I'm from Huntington. I propose we table this because the town has not received, members of the town that should see this project have not all seen it because it came and there was a holiday. And so I propose that the town of Huntington look at the project. In addition, you don't have a number of things that you might want to consider before you come back. For instance, there's no staging area included with this. The historic district is not designated. Several town parks are not designated. We have just acquired the Kiroff property on Woodhull and Park Avenue, and that's a wetlands corner on Woodhull, and that's not indicated. the drainage has to be considered because there's a lot of problem with water, and that's been addressed before. And then, this is maybe immaterial, but when we considered Oakwood Road and Elwood Road, we had drainage plans, we had complete plans. This, elevations, topos, this plan has essentially nothing to give us information. Just this plan and aerials cut and pasted.
That is true. We did come to the council at an earlier point than usual, or than what we had for the CR 10, 92, and 35. Was it 35?
No,
This is 35.
It
was just CR 10 and 92.
It was Elwood and Park Avenue.
Right, and I was here for those projects too.
Elwood and Oakwood.
Right, I was here for those projects as well. It was my understanding that for this project, since it's fairly straightforward, that a conceptual level plan would be appropriate at this time to make a determination of environmental significance. That was my...
I don't think it's
Well, I mean, one thing is
straightforward.
that no work on this project will be outside the right of way. I mean, there is no plan acquisitions, there is no change in intent of the road as you see it. I mean, the idea of the project is, it's a high volume road with high density residences to provide a safe sidewalk along the entire corridor for the residents to use. So it's not going to be a big difference in the road as you see it now. It's more about the sidewalk, and that's really what it's about. Regarding the historical, you're right, there is a lot of historical along this road. It is a two-phase project. There's a south section and the north section. The south section is a little more, south section is we led, I think, in 2000, were built in 2015 as the anticipated goal. We have reached out to the Centerport Greenlawn Historical Society already. We have talked to them already, and we're in the process of doing that regarding the Gardner Farm. The north section is still very preliminary because we're just doing a survey, so we're still doing project development, so we don't have plans for the north section yet. We do know the north section, especially by 25A, there's a lot of historical significance, so we are aware of that, and we will reach out to the proper historical people as we get to that point, but we're not there yet.
It's not just historical people. These are town parks.
Yeah, but there is
Fair
no,
Meadow is a town park.
but there's no work being done on their park. It's in our right of way. We're not taking any land from anybody. It's all within the
It's
county's
adjacent to
property.
is what they're saying.
Yeah, it's existing county
Yes,
right of
I
way.
understand that.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, it's
But-
really,
But you haven't shown any staging area.
Well-
You obviously, to work, will have to put equipment and someplace. This needs to be shown. It's heavily, it's a dense area. So I propose tabling.
Can I just make a point on that? I understand your concern about the staging area. That's a standard engineering, it's part of the standard engineering design for any project. The CR10 and 92 plans did not show staging areas either.
And that I requested a staging area there too, because it's significant to the town where the staging area
Sure.
is.
We would be getting town permits, or at least contacting Steve McGloin of Traffic Safety and Bianca Dresch of Highway Department.
And did you send this to Steve McGloin?
Not for purposes of the CEQ presentation, no. We would do that once we have
I
a
think
progressed
you
set of
should.
plans and we're at the level where
I think
we're...
you should. I will show him my copy, but I think you should.
I mean,
Send
and
that.
from another standpoint, we look at it, if we were just doing a repaving job, there'd be more work involved than this project, you know what I'm saying? I mean, regarding, and we don't even go to CEQ for that. I mean, we understand your concern, and we'll be in touch with the town of Huntington, but if, you know, I just don't, I know what you're saying, but it's a simpler project than I think you think it is. It's just it's basically a pedestrian improvement project, sidewalks, there'll be some signage improvements. There will be a very minor drainage improvements where you see some puddling, but there isn't gonna be any drastic drainage changes or anything that's different than it's there now, except you'll see a nice continuous sidewalk from 86 to 25A when it's completely completed.
I understand that, but members of the town, I think, haven't seen it because of the short period of time that it was received.
Oh, do you mean
And-
from the time you received the package till today? That time period
And
was
that's the
short.
short period of time for the town also to receive it. It's been sent to the town.
Oh,
But
it
there
has?
was, yes, of
By,
course.
by the council? Okay.
But there was a holiday, and I think they have not had time to respond.
Okay.
One, we have seen these kinds of projects at this stage where it's more conceptual. And in the past, when we've had concerns, and this is speaking to Joy's point, in the past when we've had concerns, we've sort of said, you know, given a sort of a sense of the board, if you will, if nothing else, and asked that the plans come back, or else we have said in the past also, when we have this kind of conceptual plan, well, maybe from the CEQ perspective, it's okay, but coordinate better with the town and come back to us when you have that. So there are various roads we can go down, and I believe that has happened in the past. So that's sort of answering what Joy is saying. It's well within our purview to either table this if we wanted to, or else ask for further coordination and further plans. Again, it is early in the stage. I personally have a problem with this project, at least the northern limit of it. I'm not convinced that the sidewalks are really needed in that area, and I think that it will have an impact upon the character, except in the area of the temple. I think it's Death L, if I'm not mistaken. The southern area is much more heavily populated, and I can see the need for sidewalks over there. In my opinion, the northern phase, I just don't see it. I don't see people on the roads ever over there. The side roads, the Sidereal roads, nothing. I just don't see the need for it. And I think it will have an impact upon the character. So that's my particular.
I'd like to second Joy's motion and just say I think we ought to have a little respect for the process.
I just wanted to say, perhaps, since it's really the northern section that's in contention, that we table the northern phase and perhaps we could give approval for the southern phase of it. Because the character is totally different of those two stages.
I understand that, but I don't want to split up the project itself. Okay?
I would say basically we should really talk with the town a little bit, get a
Yes.
sense
All
of
right.
what's
But
happening.
first, we really need a formal motion about tabling it. Larry, I know you seconded
I
it.
move that
Yes.
this is tabled till next month.
To let them discuss with the town of Huntington in detail.
Member.
Okay, is there a second?
Excuse me, Gloria. Joy is a CAC representative, but one of the council people have to make
do
the
it.
motion.
I'll do it.
Okay,
I'll do it. Motion to table, and Joy's concerns be taken into account, essentially that the town be allowed to have its input on this conceptual plan at this point in time.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor? Motion passed.
Technical point.
Thank you. Just can I ask for some clarification? We followed the same protocol for the CR 10 and 92 plans. Is the biggest concern, from what I'm hearing, is the contacting the town prior to coming to CEQ?
It's more than that. I think all of
Joy,
Joyce's.
I think you should answer it because you're from the town.
CEQ says if the council has not heard from you by the meeting date, they will assume that you find the action will not have significant adverse environmental impacts and should proceed accordingly. You have to provide time for the town to have input. That's required of CEQ wants the town's impact. So I think that says it all. The town should be allowed to comment on this.
So it was the existence of Columbus Day that threw the schedule off?
Well, it was a short amount of time. towns don't respond as quickly as CEQ members. You know that. Towns take a little time. Even Steve McGloin, I don't know when he got the plan. I called him and I haven't gotten an answer from him.
Well, does the town normally respond though, or they just don't respond? How does it normally go down normally? Does towns usually respond?
The town responds.
Okay. So I know that the letter's written as they don't respond, then they don't have any. So
This
kind
is
of like
also just an uncomfortable project, okay, as opposed to a bridge replacement. And again, the bridge replacement that we saw earlier was a lot further along. This is early in the stage, and as you can see, there is some discomfort around the table at this point in
Sure, well,
time as to
I'll jump
aspects
in.
of
It's like
it.
they are, even though there's one project, but it is really two projects because the south phase is farther along than the north phase, and it will be let differently in different years. I mean, just so you know. So when you were saying that.
But a month is not going to make a huge difference.
At this stage.
I don't think.
Can I
as
just also
is.
just let you know, I was at the CEQ presentation for the 10 and the 92 projects as well, and I took into your consideration your comment about contacting the public. I think, Dan, you had some questions about residents' concerns about street trees being removed. Prior to this meeting, this was, I would say, August, July probably even, we had, through our commissioner's office, contacted Legislator Stern, and I think this project was only in Stern's district, and we contacted them with a presentation style board like you see here, and we said, you know, for your constituents' information, here's information on the project. I'm not quite sure what he's done with it, but that was our form of public outreach that you had suggested.
Okay, I just want to add, Kevin and Jeff, Joy is on the CAC for the town of Huntington, and it's very important that we do have the CAC representatives from the different towns. Not all the towns send a CAC representative to the CEQ monthly meetings, but it's valuable for the town of Huntington to have Joy here, and she does participate. And she does feel that the town of Huntington really didn't have any time to look through this, go over it, and have any reactions to it. So she just wants to ensure that that process can happen. So that's really why we are tabling it.
And I join in her concerns, so it's not just a CAC member. I have,
No.
as you've seen, I'm uncomfortable with this project.
But we don't, you know, we all live in disparate areas of Suffolk County, and so we're all spread about, and what's important is we're each familiar with our areas, or maybe a few other areas, so we're more aware of what's going on and how things are perceived, et cetera. But it's so important to have the CAC members, and so to recognize that importance and to let the process unfold as it should, and let the town of Huntington respond. That's what we're asking, why we want to table.
Okay, so we should send you guys the package prior to the 2-week deadline, or is that a separate?
It's not us, it was the town didn't get it fast enough. They got it over the holiday weekend, which Columbus Day was just 2 days ago.
So you're saying we just go on the next meeting?
Yes,
Yeah, go on.
that's all.
Okay.
But please reach
Okay.
out to the town, make sure they've got it, make sure that they're looking at it, and you can discuss anything with them before you come back.
And we'd like to hear their concerns, and
Yes.
frankly, they'll talk to Joy also.
Yes,
Okay,
okay?
sure.
And based on that, we'll know when the next meeting will be.
Yes, your timeframe.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to just make sure that you realize, like, as far as I can tell, the former project was not within a historic district. This project is, and Joy, I'm not sure, is that area on the National Register also?
No, it's town.
So
town
none of that
historically
property of the historic
designated.
houses are on the National Register?
The Village Green,
Is on the National Register?
no.
Okay, none of
It's
the,
on the town.
I understand, but,
Historic designation.
so none of those houses, the Historic Society homes are on the National Register?
Oh,
I think they could be.
I think yes.
Okay, so that's, I'm not sure of all the designations you have there, but that's what's different than the former project, that you're going within a historic district, so that's why people are gonna be concerned
But
of
I
the
think-
aesthetics in that
I think
area.
you said it right. I don't think it's a historic district. Each house is historic, but the district is not considered, it's not, it's called historic.
Either
close
way,
enough to
that's,
make it
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
we
that's,
understand that.
that's like
And we
the
have-
heart of the entrance to the historic area of the town of Huntington. So no matter what, if it's on county property or not, they're still gonna care how looks. going through an
Well, that's like,
historic
for
area.
example, on the south section, we already
Historic
reached out to the Greenlawn Centerport Historic Society. We were in
Yes,
conversation with them.
but that's a small group.
Yeah.
You have to have a discussion with more.
Yeah, no, the reason we did it
this
the way we're doing it, see, the south section is ahead of the north
Gardner
section. The north section
I
is
understand that.
still on the radar screen.
But in the historic district is designated by the town of Huntington. It's not National Register. Some of the houses may be. The historic district is the village green and the arsenal and all of that.
Yeah, but we're not doing sidewalk on that side, on the other side, where there's historic houses too.
It's still close
Yeah.
enough.
But the whole thing
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
It says both sides.
yeah.
Not in that spot right there. It's variable, it's alternate. There's an alternate.
Give us better
Okay.
plans.
Yeah, we'll-
That's what we
okay,
need. Give us
that's-
better
We'll come back with
plans.
more
Let's
We
not-
need
information.
detail, we need detail.
The town of Huntington.
We need detail and to know that there is some comfort level already with the town of Huntington.
we understand
And
that.
all its components, not
We
just
understand.
all its components.
Sure.
We understand.
We'll come back with a more complete and thorough package next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Proposed acquisition of property by Suffolk County, 80%, and the town of Brookhaven, 20%, for open space preservation purposes known as the Eastport Senior Living LLC property, Topping Path, town of Brookhaven. Loretta, good morning.
Good morning.
That is D on the project review of recommended unlisted actions. I'm going to tie it in with E. It looks like we have two that are,
Jason?
Yes, both acquisitions are within the same area. They're crisscross acquisition ownership. This is in the Toppings Path area off of County Road 51, just south of County Road 111 in Matterville Eastport area. If you know the area, it's just to the northwest of Dreams Come True Farm, if you're familiar with that. This acquisition includes 2 lots in the West Hampton ownership, West Hampton 2 Old Country Road Senior Housing ownership, and 3 lots in the Eastport Senior Living property along Toppings Path area. The town owns a property to the west of these 5 lots, and there are some other county holdings to the north, but not shown on the map specifically. It's 8.79 acres in total, and we're looking to acquire it under the new Drinking Water Protection Program for open space passive recreation. It's 80% county funds with 20% town of Brookhaven funds.
Michael?
Question, I'm looking at the aerials right now, and obviously there's a farm there, as you've mentioned. Does that have any purchase of development rights sitting on it, by any chance?
Actually, it is being proposed for acquisition.
Oh, okay, good.
It's in the process of being
Yeah,
considered.
the reason I bring
again.
that up is immediately to the north, I see a McMansion in there.
Yeah, well, that's part of the farm.
That's part of the farm.
It's the farm owner.
Okay. Is that property, is the large house over there also being looked at?
Well, no.
Okay.
We would recommend that be cut out of the acquisition for farmland
The other
PDRs.
question is, you said that there are county holdings to the north. Are they within this SGPA?
Yes. This is all in the central Suffolk SGPA and compatible growth area. It's not in the core.
Yeah, a lot of growth to the east.
Loretta, the ownership immediately to the north of the subject, is that county ownership? Or is
No,
it a-
that's, there's some private ownership parcels, and then up north of that are some county-owned
Mhm.
parcels.
It's
And
not-
then just, to the top of this little sliver of woodland butts into 111. So that's the northern area of this woodland area.
Where did this rank, by the way, in the ranking scales?
I don't have that with me.
I mean, good, bad, indifferent?
Middle.
See, I don't have a problem with SGPA purchases also being next to a farm and stuff like that. And, I'll probably vote in favor of this one. It's isolated. There are obviously county holdings to the north. Can't really quantify them, but it seems like it's isolated. What is so special about this property.
This was put in by legislator Romaine 2 years ago.
And now he's the supervisor over there.
Well, I like that it's got,
It's a woodland that,
that
you
it
know,
faces all this, because I think,
It does connect in with that.
yeah,
there is somewhat of a buffer effect
yeah,
here.
exactly.
And between these two farm areas and residential areas, it is somewhat of a
that.
disconnect.
And again,
But-
if the county's talking about possibly purchasing that farm, it makes me feel a lot more comfortable with it.
Possibly.
The PDR.
It would be a PDR, right, a county PDR
Yeah,
farm.
that's good enough for me.
Is there a motion
All right.
for both?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, what is this, unlisted negative declaration.
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Loretta.
Not much pain on that one.
No,
Okay, proposed sewer district number 3, Southwest, electrical substation protection, capital project 8170, Town of Babylon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ben Wright with Public Works. We have 3 sewer district projects. They all have some common elements. They're minor in our mind for you to determine. They're all grant-related, hazardous mitigation grant, and storm-related. The first one is the electric substation at Bergen Point Treatment Plant. That's the heart of the system. Everything that's operating at that plant has power that's distributed to the substation. It's at a relatively high elevation now. It was not damaged during any of the previous storms, but we want to make sure that it has the proper protection around it. There's a wall around 2 sides of it now. We're going to add, which I sent in along with the EAF, about 200 foot of concrete wall up to elevation 19. There'll also be a pneumatic type gate that will be installed for access, 8-foot wide gate for access. The design of the infrastructure is probably 75% complete. The specifications are not in our hand yet, but relatively simple project that we'll proceed with as soon as we get a CQ determination and final plans.
Mike?
How tall is the blast wall going to be?
Excuse me?
How tall is the blast wall? Well, basically the watertight wall.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be up to elevation 19. It's 3 foot above the existing elevations.
So it'll be-
So Ben, this didn't suffer any flooding during?
No, the Bergen Point plant, went up to
No,
about...
this part, the substation
No, it
itself.
didn't.
Yeah, that's inland, but there are more.
It's a little higher elevation. We just want to make sure that, we're belt and suspenders with this particular thing because of the...
Do you think that that's adequate, what you're talking about at this
Yes.
point in time, or you don't want to go any
Yes,
higher?
no, that's probably more than adequate. We're being overcautious.
Larry?
With regard to flooding, the Bay Park plant flooded both through the pipe, as I understand it, and also from over the top. What provisions do you have to prevent flooding through the pipe? You shut it down?
No, we can't shut it down. I mean, if there's any storm surge that comes inland far enough, what happens in some cases, what we're looking at, is really a difficult issue, but the fresh air vent on many houses had water going into the fresh air vent down into the houses and into the sewer system. So, even though there's a building code that says if you're subject to flooding, you have to have a backflow valve on your system, it doesn't address the fresh air vent. So it's something we're discussing, but we have really no control over what's going to come into the system, with respect to that
But
particular
Larry,
area.
just real quick, the Bay Park plant, that empties into that Rockaway Channel. Your thing is going out into the Atlantic.
Yeah, but still, the surge was so much different from where we are going further west. I mean, Bergen Point experienced, I think, around elevation 11. Where going further west, it was much higher than that.
And well, on the other hand, though, it was 6 inches. 6 inches more, and that's what was flooded.
Yeah, well, to go to Larry's point, because that's what I was wondering, if there's any other way, that it could penetrate, from other, ground surge or whatever, or the pipes, as Larry's, is there going to be some sort of review or?
Well, we're
examination?
drafting a vulnerability analysis for the plant and for the sewer districts. I mean, that'll identify some other things, but the projects that we have here are the easy fix ones.
Okay.
So you can pump against a fairly significant head of water. Where is it, what is the depth where you pump out into in the?
Well,
the ocean?
it's 50 foot deep, but we
Okay,
were
so-
able to pump, and actually most of the tanks at Bergen Point are at elevation 15. There's some doorways and other areas that we've already purchased floodgates for that work pretty well. But it's probably the direction you're going is more in the sewer system itself.
Right.
And we have a $16 million project to evaluate infiltration and inflow, any extraneous flows, whether it's stormwater, sump pumps, etc. And that project's underway now.
So this is just one section that, like you said, that's easy for you to address right now and it needs to be done, and that there's still other things being examined.
Yes.
We're presented with one single
Right.
project right here, which
Yeah.
is the electrics.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Is there a motion?
Yeah, motion unlisted, neg deck.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Eva. All in favor? Motion passed. Moving on to your next project, Ben.
I know.
Proposed sewer district number 3, southwest pumping stations number 9 and 10, capital project 8181, town of Babylon.
Okay, there's actually two pumping stations that did experience damage, and they have a finished floor elevation of about 6.5, and both had water. The water line is about 8.5. We're going to harden those particular buildings. No really work outside. We're going to raise windows and louvers. We're going to waterproof. We're going to put floodgates at the door, and we're going to install a sump pump inside in case there's some leakage. No work outside, and we feel that by going up to elevation 10.5 will be sufficient to protect them.
Yeah, so the floodgates on the doors.
10.5, I'm sorry.
They'll be 10.5? Oh, okay.
Actually, we can't really go much higher than that, than raising the whole building. So we're, being 2 foot above what we experienced with Sandy, and actually we didn't have, well, there were other storms that were pretty high as well, and we didn't experience any problem with those two, but
Larry?
You 10.5 above what datum?
it means sea level.
Mean sea level?
Then that's,
So it is really conceivable that you could exceed 10.5 feet.
Yeah.
yes.
But the experience we had with Sandy was it was to 8.5 of these 2 stations.
Right, but Sandy, most of the storm surge was to the west.
Well, this is
And
the furthest west of our district, Copaig and Amityville.
I'm just concerned that had that been a different location, you could have had, probably another 3 or 4 feet above.
Well, possible. I mean, they are inland more than the Bergen Point treatment plant, and that may be part of, why we only went up to 8.5.
Okay.
So to Larry's point, though, might there be other means that you might want to consider for higher levels?
Well, like I
Can you
indicated,
just
yeah,
say
the only
that?
way to do that with these stations is to raise the whole building.
But right now you have funding to do this mitigation measure. Is that basically what this is boiling down to? You
Yes.
have enough funding for this mitigation measure. Is there a motion?
Unlisted negative deck.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dan. All in favor? Motion passed. Thank you, Ben. All righty, the recommended type 2 action, Ben. Proposed replacement of sewer district emergency electric generators, capital project 8103, all sewer districts.
Yeah, this is a preventive action. Again, we did submit this as a hazardous mitigation grant program grant application. We have roughly 75 pumping stations that are in all our sewer districts. Some are in high areas, not a flooding issue necessarily, but with power outages, they are exceeding their life expectancy, even though we exercise them and maintain them properly. FEMA has indicated that generators, their expected life definition is about 15 years. We have some that are older than that. Ordinarily, if we're going to replace a generator, we wouldn't necessarily come to CEQ, but because of the grant process, it's better to have CEQ or SEQA recommendation. So that's what we're looking for here. I did indicate a number of our larger sewer districts in the application that we sent in that had 46 generators associated with those. Some we may not replace right away. We may keep the inventory, but we want to make sure that when storms are coming and we have some uncomfortable levels with some of the generators that we replaced them.
Mike?
What kind of fuel storage do you have over there? In terms of capacity, how
I'm
many
talking about
days?
Bergen Point?
Well, no.
No, most of these are 4 or 5 days. Some are gas, natural gas, most of them are diesel.
Gotcha.
Where is the fuel stored?
There's storage
Right over there.
fuel tanks.
No, but it's
Yeah.
USTs or ASTs?
On each site.
But they're underground tanks or above ground?
Most of them are above ground now. We may have some that we're still dealing with. We've been going through this process for a number of years.
And how did they fare during Hurricane
Is it
Sandy?
vulnerable?
Yeah.
No, most of them are inland. We just didn't have much
Okay.
problem. It was more of the time they were running, 4 or 5 days, and then can you get fuel to them? Because everybody wants fuel, so.
Oh, that's a negative deck.
No, it's a-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just this one, under the type 2 actions, there's criteria 2, which is replacement rehabilitation, so we'll recommend it as a type 2 for that reason.
So restate.
This is as a type 2 negative deck.
But just type 2.
Just type 2.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Larry. All in favor?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Larry.
So if you go over to the Port Jefferson plant, that's all gravity in the plant down to the water, right?
Yes.
So if you had a storm surge of 10 or 12 feet in there, can you pump against it?
Yeah, actually, we were able to pump everything out there. We did have some tanker trucks there just in case because we were getting close to capacity. And the water level in Port Jeff didn't go onto the site. It was getting close, but it didn't go onto the pump station site that's downtown. So we were able to keep up with everything and just had the emergency vehicles there just in case.
So did you have pumper trucks at most of your plants?
No.
Just,
No, Port Jefferson was one that was more critical.
what about Huntington?
No. No, because Huntington is a residential area, South Huntington Hills.
Huntington's underwater, it seems to me, all the time.
Well, that's not our district though, the village.
That's the village,
Town,
and it's
town.
underwater. Okay. What are you gonna do about that?
Not our problem.
North Port is even worse.
Okay. Ben, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Christine, can you go find?
Oh, yes.
Oh, there it is. Recommended type 2 action, vector control 2014 annual plan of work. Good morning, Dominic.
Good morning. And this, I hope, is a routine manner in that the plan of work for 2014 is essentially the same as for the 2013 plan. We have a report on our pesticide usage, which this year was actually down. The larviciding was down primarily because tidal conditions, I guess, were such that there were relatively few broods of mosquitoes produced in the salt marsh. I can't entirely take credit for that because I checked with my colleagues up and down the coast, and apparently this is sort of a coast-wide phenomenon, so it probably had to do with just the nature of the tides this year. We detected, I think we're up to 177 isolations of West Nile virus, but they're almost entirely in Culex mosquitoes that bite birds. It seemed like we had a lot of activity, the so-called enzootic cycle between birds and mosquitoes, but we didn't do any adulticiding directed toward West Nile virus because we were finding the virus areas where historically we didn't have a lot of human activity. So far we have one probable human case of West Nile virus, and that case was in a place where, as often happens, nobody expected the case to show up there. So it looks like the decision to not adulticide seems to have been borne out. We didn't see any people get sick in areas where we were thinking about adulticiding. We're still, as we have for the last few years, waiting for the final approval of the wetland stewardship plan so that we can use some of the higher level management practices. And this is something I hope to see done this fall, so we can look and see about doing some other projects. We're always exploring special projects such as, especially now with post-Sandy, there's some possible funding sources for marsh management, but those are kind of down the line. So that's basically what we're up to for 2014.
Yeah, Dom, Triple E. There were a lot of not cases, but there were a lot of isolations up in Connecticut. Did we see any down here?
No, we haven't seen Triple E and mosquitoes here since 2008, and we really don't have a good explanation. The primary mosquito that you see the virus in, Culiceta melanura, is a bird-biting species that lives in red maple swamps, and our numbers seem to be down. There might be some changes in the wetlands that they're just not producing the species. I can remember in the mid-90s putting out traps and getting hundreds per night. And now it's more like dozens. But that seems to be either having to do with water table heights or just changes in the wetland. So we've seen it. It's been interesting because the last few years we've seen more virus activity. They had a human case a couple of years ago in central New York. We've had virus activity in New England, and New Jersey was fairly active this year. But for whatever reason, we didn't see it here.
I'd also like to point out or look at a couple of numbers. I have some charts here. Let's see. Adulticiding. Now, one of the things that everyone's got to remember is when this plan was put into effect, we had a basic and fundamental shift. In the 2000, adulticiding was seen as the clear and present danger. Everyone was primarily concerned about the chemicals that were being used, and we were all afraid that the entire county was being nuked with this stuff. So vector control shifted from an active adulticide model to a water management and suppressive larval control model as the public health choice, and that was the CDC and WHO model. The reason I bring that up is we're looking at 9,600 acres that were adulticided. Now, in, 2010, there were 54,000 acres, just coming up with random numbers. In 2008, there were 38,000. And it's been dropping the last couple of years, 16,000 in 2011, about 25,000 in 2012, and now 9,600. Now, admittedly, it probably was a good year, but we do see a very large reduction in the adulticide acreage.
Well, I think that we've always emphasized larviciding and water management. I think with West Nile virus, as we continue to accumulate experience, we have a better idea of where the areas of true high risk seem to be, and we are finding that our surveillance for West Nile in birds, the bird mosquito cycle is very, very good. And we're very sensitive to picking up that part of the cycle. And especially in the last 3 to 4 years, we get a lot of detections. But that opens up the question, well, what does that really mean? Because we know you can see this bird mosquito cycle, the enzootic cycle, and not see human involvement. So we are taking a more conservative approach to responding to West Nile detections with adulticiding. The other thing that seems clear is that aerial adulticiding does seem to suppress West Nile virus activity. Ground application is much more uncertain, so we've tended to shy away from ground application in response to West Nile virus, and that brings
so basically you're saying it's a nuanced approach, and that's basically leading to the reduction in that. I'm also looking at the larvicide numbers. On your cover sheet, 10,000 acres down 41%. From just 2012, and I'm trying to, there it is. Just for the council's edification, in previous years we've been looking at, in terms of total acreage, 28,000, 22,000, 20,000, 31,000, 20,000, and then it's been dropping the last couple of years. Again, admittedly, it's been maybe a better year, or a better couple of years, but nonetheless, the fact that the larvicides are down considerably, one is impressive, and Two, would you care to comment on or explain to us why those numbers are down, aside from what I brought out?
Yeah, well, like I say, we're heavily dependent on the larvicide on weather and tidal cycles. And, this year, but I guess the other thing we keep in mind is that we do larvicide in response to surveillance. And, if the larvae are not there, or if it looks like their marsh is going to dry up, we're not going to go out and send a helicopter. And, that's worked out pretty well for us in terms of the salt marsh. This year we had to do one ground application in Mastic Beach for adult mosquitoes. We could have done a second, it ended up resolving on its own. But those areas along the South Shore, we've managed to keep things under fairly good control with the larviciding. Like I say, I don't want to promise too much that this is going to, that acreage could jump substantially next year. If we have a lot of extreme tides during the peak season, we're going to have to get out there and larvicide. So, but we are just trying to keep this under control and trying to do this.
That also shows, I'm looking at some other numbers with methoprene, which is a particular source subject. And while it does bounce around, it looks to my eye, we're at 25% of what we used to, I shouldn't say we, what you have sprayed in the past. The last couple of years, the methoprene numbers have been down considerably.
Yeah, and again, that's some of that, a lot of that has to do with, what the conditions are out in the marsh. We historically like to get out there and use BTI, for a variety of reasons, less resistance, more quick kill, so we know it worked. I don't know, it'll be interesting to see, very often you need to use methoprene when you have a mixed brood, where you'll find all stages out in the marsh. And you see this in the eastern end of Great South Bay, where tides can be very irregular there, because you not only have the lunar tide, but you'll have wind set up. So you might get a lunar tide, and then a couple of days later you get a wind, you get another hatching. So instead of getting that classic salt marsh mosquitoes hatching every 2 weeks, you get additional hatches.
You get a mixing of population.
And you get these mixed broods. We haven't seen that so much this year. That is something that you would predict from the new inlet, because one of the effects that Stony Brook has pointed out can happen from the new inlet is that it sort of acts as a safety valve, that when the wind is blowing down the bay, instead of it piling up at the east end, it can go out that inlet. So we might be seeing that fewer of these wind events.
You're saying greater tidal exchange?
Well, fewer of these wind events, but it's a little early to see, and especially given that we've seen that other districts have seen that up and down the coast where they didn't have this kind of thing. I'm reluctant to attribute it to the new inlet.
Well, that stage issue, frankly, is something that we'll have to look at in a couple of minutes. The other bill.
Let's address this right now. Is there a motion that this is a type 2?
All right, I'll make that motion. I think that this plan, it's a motion, type 2. The old language would be negative declaration. I think it's entirely consistent with the EIS and the EIS protocols. I'm also very happy that the numbers have been trending down and that the surveillance is a lot better. I think that that's very important to note. But again, the consistency with the EIS is a critical aspect.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Larry. All in favor? Motion passed.
Yes, I have a bit of a cold.
For, the Corps of Engineers in their Fire Island to Montauk Point reformulation plan, which they have to spend, I think, $60 million by the end of December or something, has expressed interest in working with other government agencies in doing things like purchasing marshland. And you probably should contact them.
Yeah, we've been in touch with the Corps with some of the things they'd like to see done, particularly in the Smith Point area. We've talked to them about I guess there are areas where they'd like to widen the barrier island, which is not something that we would be involved in, but there are also some marshes there, particularly by Great Gun at the far eastern end of Fire Island. We've spoken to them about possibly doing some marsh management to improve that marsh and improve the stability of that marsh as part of strengthening, excuse me, the barrier island. So we have been in discussions with the Corps about whether there are things that we can do in terms of wetlands management, that would fit in with what they have in mind.
Okay, one of the things that when I was talking to them at one of the meetings we had, I thought was very encouraging is that we here at CUQ have been very reluctant to purchase properties where there are, structures because of the cost of tearing them down and so forth. And the Corps might be very helpful, and if you purchase the land, they might be able to contribute resources to actually get rid of the structure.
We certainly would like to see, there are some areas in Mastic Beach where you've got marshlands and there's a road running around the outside and there's a couple of scattered houses here and there. And, these marshes have been cut off from the tide by the roads, and, there are some pipes that we maintain, but, if those areas could be cleared out so we didn't have to worry about the houses, that certainly would make it a lot easier to do some wetlands management in that area. And so, we're hopeful that those kinds of things, will happen, although it's a little bit outside of our, bailiwick.
Just sort of following up on that, I know there's been controversy about the new inlet that got cut through. A lot of people say they want to close it up, and a lot of people are saying that it should be left open. Just in terms of mosquito control, from what you've been saying, it seems as if there would be, your department might favor keeping that new inlet open.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see any change that we could attribute to the new inlet. I think that if we had fewer of these intermittent tides, wind events, that would certainly help us. Again, in this case, I'm reluctant to attribute that to the inlet because it was more of a coast-wide phenomenon. But I think anything that improves the water quality and helps with the wetlands management is something we'd be in favor of. But again, one of the things that we recognize is that that's a much bigger issue than mosquito control.
Loaded question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joy has something. No, Joy.
I would like to ask that Dominic could tell us in a future meeting about the tick control problem that has landed in his lap. I understand, I didn't see the legislation, but we were talking a little bit, and it's the four-poster problem.
I mean, that legislation passed while I was conveniently out of the country.
You were exiled.
But on the other hand, I mean, if you look at the county charter, ticks are clearly within our mandate. And so I certainly think that legislation is a rational response to a significant problem. I think the issue will be when people start to see what we can and can't do, and that's one of the things I'm by the time we get to reporting it, to give people a little reality check of what we can and can't be expected to accomplish. And of course, one of the big things that would need to be done is this is clearly something that needs an environmental review and most likely an EIS. And somebody's going to have to pony up the money for that. And we can't add a major activity to our program without significant resources. So I was gratified to see that so many people are looking to us to help them solve this problem. I hope the same people are there, when we hand them, this is what it's going to cost.
Speaking of the EIS, I'm not 100% sure how that particular process might work for the following reason. The four-poster system, for example, that they're using in orienting towards deer, that's sort of established. And that would be more probably an unlisted action, especially to the extent it has a fair amount of DEC permits associated with it, the pesticide application, things like that. My concern would be any further efforts to control ticks. There's been talk about controlled burnings in certain areas. Well, Montauk County Park, when the Nature Conservancy, I think it was TNC, wanted to burn down half of the park, we did require an EIS. So if you're talking about widespread use of chemicals beyond the four-poster, I could see an EIS. If you're talking about burning selected areas, I could see that. A lot of the stuff, though, if it's more towards, again, the four-poster side of things, I'm not sure that one would kick in.
Michael,
But
we're
that's
going to
just-
table that for another time, another day. Thank you very
Fine
much,
for me.
Dominic.
All right.
Okay, recommendations for the LADS report, recommendations for legislative resolutions laid on the table September 12, 2013. Everybody has that in their packets. John, is there anything that you want to point out to us in this particular one?
Yeah, no, I think just, that our recommendations are on the
They're on there?
left-hand column, but nothing jumped out to
Chris, when the vote is taken, I'm abstaining on 1886.
Okay. He's abstaining on 1886. That's actually
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion on these, or is there a motion?
Motion to accept staff recommendations.
Is there a second? Second. By Eva, all in favor? Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, recommendations for legislative resolutions laid on the table October 8th, 2013. Again, John, is there anything in there that...
Yeah, we went through this one also, and our recommendations are there, but didn't want to point out anything in particular that seemed like an issue.
Okay, and this is 1886 that
Yep.
Michael recused himself from that one. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Eva, anybody seconding? Mike has seconded, all in favor? Motion passed. Next on the agenda, recommendation for intro resolution number 1692-2013, establishing guidelines for the use of methadone in Suffolk County as amended as of 9/10/2013. That is in your packet. Okay, discussion.
All right. I've reviewed the bill both from the legal side of things and also from the science side of things. And just starting with the legal side of things, I'm not sure about one or two of these whereases. Methoprene generally is a stage 3 and 4 larvicide. And yeah, the long-term plan does limit the use of metho for stage 1 and 2. I mean, that's very clear. But the states of Connecticut and Maine doesn't have those kinds of restrictions in there, as far as I'm aware. Connecticut has some. They still use methoprene. So that's just maybe a little quibble with it. But the second part of the legal analysis, beyond getting into the science, is I'm not sure that a bill that may have some questions as to the science, whether it can just be necessarily easily passed. And I appreciate that the legislator has changed this bill several times to try and make it conform with the EIS and with the legal requirements that are out there, but it still gives me the willies, basically. When I know that there are issues regarding the science, I'm not sure that legally the bill can be established as a type 2 the way it's being done. So that's on the legal side of things. I just happen to be an attorney. But then you look at the science of it, and there are a lot of questions that come up. I'm very glad that Dominic and Mary Dempsey, yeah, she's over there, are here to answer some of those questions. Can I ask a couple of questions of the staff? Dominic, where'd he go? There he is. You're on the hot seat.
What else is new?
Question. You brought up a couple of minutes ago that in marshes, there's often no clear demarcation of the stages, of the brooding stages. Sometimes you'll have mixes of stage 1 and 2 with stage 3 and 4, and you'll try and treat them simultaneously. This bill, it looks to me, is saying that you're not going to be able to do that. Basically, the bill would say if there's stage 1 present, this is in the first resolve, if there's stage 1 present, if there's a mixing, you basically can't put certain types of chemicals in there. So that's a restriction, if you will. So that's the first aspect of it. And the second aspect is, again, with this first part of it, if you can't necessarily larvicide, which is the preferred CDC WHO way of doing things, are you looking at breakouts? Are you looking at larger adult populations hatching?
Well, this bill is kind of an example of non-professionals trying to insert themselves into decision-making that really needs to be made by the professionals. And, I can explain a little bit about our decision-making, and they've tried to tweak the bill, but inevitably, they're not going to take into account all the possibilities. And this is a good example. As the bill is written, right now, if we have, say, all 4 larval stages present, we'd use a mixture of BTI and methoprene. Under this bill, we probably couldn't do that, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because it doesn't. Then we have to decide: are we going to control the stage 1s and 2s, or are we going to control the 3s and 4s? It puts us in an impossible position, and what happens is, when you degrade the effectiveness of the larval control program, you run the risk of having more adult mosquitoes. When you have more adult mosquitoes, your only choice is adulticiding, which everybody agrees is less desirable. We've done a pretty good job over the last few years of reducing the amount of adulticiding that we've been doing, and that's because of our good larviciding program. One thing that tends to be forgotten is where we stood when BTI was our only option in the salt marsh. And basically, we had about 5 to 10 times the amount of mosquitoes coming out of the salt marsh into the residential areas as we do now, based on our light trap counts, which are pretty reliable. I would not want to go back to those situations where we have these outbreaks of mosquitoes and we end up having to adulticide very large sections of the coastline. I very vividly remember my first couple of years in the program, particularly in 1994, where we had treatment failures with BTI, and basically we had 5 days of helicopters flying to cover the coastline from Mauritius out to Oakdale and Iceland. Nobody wants to go back to that kind of operation. It's unnecessary, and it's not good mosquito control.
Basically, then, under seeker, you're saying that using these regulations would be changing the focus of the EIS from larviciding to adulticiding.
Yeah, well, basically, it contemplates a substantial change to the larviciding program, and when we design the program and under the EIS, those parts of the program fit together. And one reason why we agreed that using methoprene in the larviciding program was a good idea was because of its effect on reducing the use of these broad-spectrum pesticides in residential areas.
Adulticides.
Yes. So in the overall scheme of things, the use of methoprene actually reduces the overall risk and environmental impact of the program, because you're using a material that's very specific for mosquito larvae out in the marsh where you're not exposing people, as opposed to if the mosquitoes get out into the residential areas, we're using pesticides that are broad-spectrum pesticides, and we're using them in residential areas where inevitably people are exposed.
And the risk analysis that in 2002, I remember I was here, and 2002 through 7 was adulticides were worse than anything.
Yeah, well, the risk analysis for the entire program was based on the amount, on what we can accomplish, with a good larviciding program. The EIS did not contemplate a major increase in adulticiding, resulting from fooling with, basically interfering with other parts of the program. The program is an integrated program, all the parts work together. This legislation is intended to make a major change in the larvicide program. I mean, if it's just a tiny little tweak, why are we doing this? So if you have a major change in the larviciding program, you at least need to evaluate whether there will be repercussions elsewhere in the program and in the scheme of things. Now, whether or not those repercussions would actually happen is almost irrelevant to our debate here, because I remember when the EIS was demanded, the key word in SEQR was may. There may be an impact, and I think it's indisputable that there may be an impact from this change.
Larry.
A couple of comments. First of all, going back to your statement about people are getting involved where professionals actually should be. I disagree with that to some extent. We got rid of DDT largely because common folk started to realize there were problems, whereas the professionals were not stepping forward to deal with it. So, I think it's not always the professionals that have the answer. But that being said, I am very concerned with some of the whereases here, and the whereases are important in the legislation because it really sets the tone for the need for the resolved. And I'm concerned with the statement, whereas community members and environmental organizations have raised concerns. I think they ought to be more specific. What community groups and what environmental organizations? What's the basis of it? Where's the science that should probably be considered as a whereas? And I don't see any of that in the whereases. Going down to whereas the states of Connecticut, Maine, as well as other communities throughout New England have established guidelines to limit the use of methoprene. We don't know what the basis of that is. We don't know what the...
That's largely untrue, as a matter of fact.
Well, I'm not going to say it's untrue.
No, all I can say is,
But we don't know what they're trying to solve. Just because they have guidelines, so what? And for then us to go in the next whereas, because Connecticut and Maine have done something, does not necessarily mean that the conditions here are comparable and should be identical to what Connecticut and Maine has done. So from my point of view, there has been really no basis through presenting real need to in this law to move forward. And I just think that this is very weak, and it's a basis for establishing a law that may not be needed. It may be needed, I don't know, but certainly the real need is explained here through the whereas clause is not justification for going forward.
Well, it turns out I decided to check with some of these other states. And it turns out methoprene is not banned in Maine. Methoprene is available for use. They do very little mosquito control in Maine. Massachusetts has methoprene as a part of their regular programs, and they certainly have lobsters in Massachusetts. The methoprene is not banned in Connecticut. They continue to use it. So this whole idea that there are these draconian bans on this material because it's so bad, and that somehow this is connected to why they have lobsters is a completely false premise. And when you start putting out legislation based on things that are demonstrably false, I think you're in a very serious problem.
Well, I wanted to just add, though, in addition to Larry's comments, Michael's comments, that the need or necessity for this bill is based on hearsay, basically. We have nothing substantial saying why we need this legislation. But on top of that, the first resolve and the second resolve are substantive changes to the generic environmental impact statement that was overwhelmingly passed and approved in 2007, I think. Based on that alone, never mind the hearsay reasons in science, this is a type 1 action. It cannot be a type 2 action. It will have impacts, and it would need a supplemental environmental impact statement to follow through on this.
Yeah, and basically, in terms of the decisions that would be made by professionals, Larry is right that on things like banning DDT, these major policy decisions, need to be made, at above the technical level. Where I disagree is that this bill gets down to the minute details of the program. It's when you see this larval stage, you can use it. That's where I think that the policymakers need to step aside for the technical experts. But you're quite correct that some of these overall issues, we do look to the policymakers.
What I would like to suggest now is there a motion?
I'll do it. I don't know exactly how we... All right, I'll just go in and see what happens. I would make a motion that the CEQ classify this bill as a type 1 with a positive declaration, and that a supplemental environmental impact statement be required, and that in our communications to the legislature that we put down our reasons why.
If I could just add, I think, because there was the EIS, type 1, and then the supplemental EIS would say that this needs to be studied because it may have a substantive change and may have an impact.
Yeah, it is.
And then when it is studied, it could be determined whether it's a positive declaration.
Well, no, it's a pos dec to get to the sub, and because of the May standard. The standard is May. Therefore, when you have a May standard, and we consider that it may have an impact, technically right now we go pos dec. Once an EIS is done, let's say we find out something, it can either be a pos dec or a neg dec at that time. Pos dec essentially says, hey, we see big problems. Neg dec at that time means no, we don't see it once it's studied. So that procedurally, it's a two-step. So it would be a pos dec hitting the May.
Let me ask a question. I totally agree that it should be type 1, but I'd also like to see in any correspondence that we have with the legislature that, in fact, the justification for the bill is weak, and that be made clear to them, because just because it has to go through a type 1 doesn't mean that the law itself has no basis.
Okay, so
We have to
John,
explain it.
what you'll do is you'll explain that and the recommendations why we said type 1. The first part is the whereases are weak. Their recommendations have no basis in science. They haven't provided a real valid reason. The second is there will be substantive changes that we have to comply with Resolve 1 and Resolve 2, and it is a substantial change, and it has to be type 1.
Just to explain, typically this process, this was on the July 30th MADS report, and we reviewed it then, and then it was amended, so we're reviewing it again. So typically, we make the classification and just the recommendation. But I think in this...
We can put comments on that.
I would like to see comments added.
We have done that in the past.
So it's clearer
Okay.
to the legislator
Yeah.
what our reasons
It's an
are.
asterisk.
We could kind of do that part of the resolution.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have done that in the past a number of times.
I hope to kind of really get that out there and understand why we're so adamant that this is type 1.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Motion passed. Dominic, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Any other business? Okay, CAC concerns any others, Joy, besides what you told me? Okay. Is there a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to close.
Is there a second? Second. Mike, all in favor? Thank you very much, everyone.
When he drafts the letter, you will have look at come up.
I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes it's better. I know. You're right.
Same part of my protocols are open to all in our system. I don't want to do that for a year.